Hello, everyone. This is Tom Fox, and I'd like to welcome you to the Daily Compliance News. The Daily Compliance News is an offering of the Compliance Podcast Network. April 2, 2019, the Facebook Mea Culpa edition. First up, how much do you want to have a judge in the thumb of your business? Well, PG&E is about to find out that is not a very pleasant thing, because due to their recalcitrance and failure to follow a deferred prosecution agreement that a judge has a jurisdiction over, or I should say probationary agreement, a judge is threatening to prevent the company from resuming dividend payments to shareholders until it reduces its role that it promised to do in sparking California wildfires. This is certainly pretty close to unprecedented, but given PG&E's actions in not doing anything, it might do something to get their attention. Next up, from the Wall Street Journal, Mark Zuckerberg called for government regulators to take a more active role in governing the internet. And it's interesting to see that his claim, or at least his plea, I should say, has not drawn much favor, certainly not for Facebook, because the reason he made this plea is not to actually do anything positive, but it's to try to give Facebook cover that if it follows the regulators it won't be sued as much, or at least served and get such negative publicity. Next up, the country of Slovakia has elected an anti-corruption lawyer to be its first female head of state. Her win was hailed as a rare success for liberal forces in Central Europe. Her name is Zuzana Kaputova, and she was elected as a progressive pro-European candidate who tied into the deep public anger of the murder of an investigative journalist and his family last year. She won over 58% of the vote, and that's a pretty big winning margin, really, in any election. So it's going to be interesting to see how or where she can take the country. Finally, J.P. Morgan and Nigeria. I often talk about regime change, and this is a great example of where you can get into trouble, because the country of Nigeria is suing J.P. Morgan for its role in helping the prior head of the government, indeed dictator Sani Abacha, launder money and loot the country. Now, there's no allegation that J.P. Morgan was a part of any illegal activity, but the country claims that the money taken by the former government, J.P. Morgan should have known that the instructions did not have the air of legitimacy. And the bank has been unable to persuade a British judge to throw the case out because of some very extenuating circumstances, such as other banks refused to engage in the transaction. So it's just one more example of regime change can come back to bite a U.S. company doing business legally. As we near the end of March and move into April, I hope you are awaiting the start of the baseball season as much as I am going forward. This is Tom Fox. If you have any ideas for the Daily Compliance News, please feel free to email me at tfox@tfoxlaw.com. I'd love to hear from you. As you may know, we've had several new offerings on the Compliance Podcast Network. One of those includes Popcorn and Compliance, where Jay Rosen and I take a look at compliance through the lens of movies, both current, contemporary movies, and classic movies. Also premiering in December. And finally, Mary Shirley and Lisa Fine have premiered their new podcast, Great Women on Compliance. I hope you will check that out. It's a great podcast series. We have several other offerings that are in production that will go live hopefully in Q1 of 2019. I hope you will check back to see the offerings on this Compliance Podcast Network.